You are listening to GeekFest Rants on the IC Robots Radio Network.
You have located GeekFest Rants, the entertainment podcast for genre geeks like you.
Shall we play a game?
Covering the world of vintage and current film and television since 2010.
Game over, man! It's game over!
Featuring in-depth conversations on sci-fi, horror, fantasy, comics, toys, and conventions.
So say we all! So say we all!
And now sit back, relax, and enjoy today's show.
Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the starship Enterprise. Its 5-year mission: to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no man has gone before.
Hi everybody, and welcome once again to GeekFest Rants. My name is Carlos Perrone, and today I have Steve Folks once again joining me. We are going to tackle the subject of the Mary Sue. What exactly is the Mary Sue? Some of us have not heard it before. Some of us weren't exactly sure what it meant. But it is a very relevant subject these days when it comes to certain criticisms of genre material, and we'll go into it and try to figure out a little bit of its history and how it's being applied possibly correctly or incorrectly these days. So let's get started with Steve and myself talking about the Mary Sue.
We interrupt this broadcast to bring you a special news bulletin direct via satellite from our on-the-spot task force.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not gonna take this anymore!
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention?
Thank you, Bob.
It's Mort.
Mark, yes. I am Ted Baxter, and here is the news.
All right, I have Steve once again joining me. Hi, Steve. How are you?
Hey, Carlos. Hey, everyone.
We are going to delve into a topic today that we haven't talked about yet. And it's a topic that is kind of new to me in a way because I heard this term before, the term the Mary Sue, when referring to a character. But I never really understood what it meant, and I never made the connections. And very recently, again, having to do with people that are criticizing certain characters in certain movies or TV shows, how they make that connection and how this applies not only to television and film, but obviously literature. This is probably something that is probably enormous in literature too, in terms of how certain characters could be declared a Mary Sue type of character. But let's start with you, Steve, because you're more aware of this than I was. Tell me your background of what you know that this means.
First of all, I sort of wanted to do this topic because I felt like it was something that has emerged more prominently and more, like it's louder than it ever has before. And I think that, there's a couple of reasons for it. But when I first started hearing about it was when I first got into Star Trek, which coincidentally was the actual origin of the term Mary Sue, which I found completely, bizarre. The fact that, my first entry into it was Star Trek, and its own origin was Star Trek. But we'll talk about that later on, most likely. But when I first started watching Star Trek, my first entry into the series was Star Trek Enterprise back in 2001. But previously, and I liked it so much, I wanted to go back and watch a lot of the other previous, series. So I looked back at Voyager, and I started reading some of the reviews for it, and I kept seeing this term, because the captain of the Voyager was Captain Janeway.
Yes.
And so, I guess at the time, and even now, Voyager isn't exactly looked upon as the best Star Trek series. It's sort of kind of like that one that's not exactly, remembered the most fondly with.
Well, I think the only one that's a little more disliked, I would say, maybe is Enterprise.
Yeah,
some people
right.
do hold Voyager, I think, slightly in higher regards than Enterprise.
Right. And you can tell because it lasted far longer than Enterprise did.
Yeah, of course.
But the main the captain of the series was it was a female named Captain Janeway, and I started reading some reviews for it. I kept seeing this term Mary Sue come up again and again, and so I found out later on through context and kind of digging around is the fact that the term Mary Sue applies to a character in either literature or film. Mm-hmm. Those are the two biggest, where the character is given sort of this overpowered sense of being, where what I mean by that is the fact that the character sort of does everything right. They don't show any, outward flaws or anything. And they have this sort of natural ability to pick up anything and be able to do anything. And this is looked upon as a bad thing by most viewers, where they see a character, and I suppose it would relate to them not being able to relate to the character. So it would suggest that, this character is too perfect or too good at everything. So what, how they get this, this powerful. Mm-hmm. So that's really how, and the origin of it began from a sort of like a critique on Star Trek, really, where it was a fan fiction.
That's what's amazing. It wasn't real, on air material. It was something that was relegated to kind of like off to the side.
Yeah, right. And that term just, sort of took off. I believe the character was actually the Lieutenant Mary Sue, I believe.
Right. And so some of the things I also read about the creation of that character is also that, yes, because it was originally a female character, it kind of stuck to that term and to that gender when it came to, naming that character. But it was also, I'm reading also that it was also a way to kind of project, because again, this is fan fiction, so this is somebody's own projection of what they think Star Trek should be like. And if it's written by a young woman, for example, which I believe it was kind of like in that realm, it was her projecting her aspirations of, I wish there was a more powerful woman and a woman that was attractive to, that men would be attractive to. It's kind of like you want to have it all. You want to be smart, attractive. Everybody listens to you. You're always right. You could say fantasy version of what a young person, a young woman might think that the ideal character is. But again, it's fan fiction, so you can't really limit or you can't really make rules of what fan fiction is. It's fan fiction.
Right, and that's the thing where technically, if you really wanted to split hairs, a lot of books that are produced are, technically, fan fiction. I mean, yeah, if you have a licensed, let's say Star Trek book. Yeah, they have to go through, it has to be, officially sanctioned by, the powers that be. But,
right.
A lot of these authors are, grew up as fans of the series. So, you can, the term fan fiction can bend quite a bit.
What's the difference between fan fiction and a real book? It's a check. It's somebody paying you money.
Yeah.
Once they pay you money to do it, you're now a writer, an official quote-unquote writer, especially if you're being hired by the franchise owner of whatever franchise. Because theoretically, you could say, hey, listen, Steve, I'm going to give you $20 if you go write a fan fiction. That really doesn't make you a writer all of a sudden. You're just a fan fiction writer that he's being paid. But when you're being paid by the creator of the franchise or the license holder, then there's a little more weight to what you're saying.
Right, that's very true. But what about you? What was your first entry into learning about this idea?
It's funny because lately I've been hearing more about it, and unfortunately, it has to do with a very popular topic that I really wish we didn't have to talk about, but we do, and that is toxic fandom.
Yep.
But I do remember, if we're going to kind of think about Star Trek a little bit, in Next Generation, Wesley Crusher, even though back then I didn't hear the term, but the character of Wesley, people were always like, oh yeah, great. Now Wesley's going to rescue everybody. At the last 5 minutes, he's so smart. He's the cute kid, and he's smart, the typical television kid that is smarter than all the adults. Well, they made him scientifically smarter than all the adults, one way or the other. But I could kind of tell that when they started to get a little blowback because he was always the default guy to rescue everybody, they kind of stayed away from it and said, all right, wait, we got to back off a little bit. Don't overuse the Wesley character. Send him off to the academy. Let him do something so our guys can get into trouble without being rescued by him. So I do remember that would be a perfect example where you could apply the term to that character. But more recently, again, because of what's happening with fandom, I see it more as it's focused on women now. It's if a woman is too powerful, oh, she's a Mary Sue. If she displays too many characteristics of the lead hero, let's say, she's a Mary Sue. Where you can compare her character to a different character, people wouldn't have made that connection if the other character was a man. It was just, well, he's just the hero. He's the hero. Or he's the lead. Why do we have to have an equal that all of a sudden comes and she's just, a woman? So that's how I've heard about it recently in that manner.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how that's where, to me, it seems like the labeling of the Mary Sue now has become more reactionary and more, if anything in our more, fandom displays any hint of, okay, if a strong female character is going to do something, this perceived notion that there has to be some sort of like backlash to it. And one of the examples I give is in the current Star Trek, Commander Burnham, where she is, in the beginning of the series, it's sort of laid out, clearly that the show is going to be centered around her. So, for better or for worse, the show does delve deep, focus a lot on her as a character. And so as people began to watch it more and more, the term kept, being used and applied to her. And the fact that, she's always the focus. She's always, doing everything. Everything is centered around her. And it started becoming, well, if the show is about you, or if the show is about, let's say, Captain Archer, just for example. Yeah, the plot is going to revolve around that person.
If you're the lead, you're the lead. That's the title you've been given. You're the lead.
Yeah, right. And so I always had this kind of, questioning, okay, well, yeah, she's the lead of the TV series. That's generally how things are written. I mean, if the story is going to be centered around her, it'd be kind of odd if every episode they relegate her to the background. So
right, but like you said, this was made very clear early on that first of all, she was not going to be the captain because they wanted to have, I guess, some kind of a revolving door situation where they could have different either captains or people in command, so that you're not always stuck with this leader, which is what we've had every single Star Trek show we've had. It's always been a captain and everybody under the captain. But here, it's a little different. It's about the one that's technically first in command, but she's not even first in command half the time because she's still in trouble for what she did. But it gives them, I guess, from a writing perspective, a way to be able to write new characters that are in charge, as opposed to just a guest lieutenant of the week or a guest whatever that comes in and comes out. Here, they're able to bring people in that lasts mainly almost for a whole season, I would say, and lead the show, lead the mission, whatever the mission happens to be. And then she's the constant. She's the constant character that we kind of are seeing this through.
Right, and so it just brings up the question. And again, I hate to bring these sort of underbelly topics up, but the question is if this were a male character, would the blowback be as big? I mean, you do bring up the good point of Wesley Crusher.
I'll take it a step further. If this were a male character and a white male character, because in this day and age, black and woman is a double whammy to some people. It's like, well, why are you doing that? You're just trying to appease those people. If it's Disney, it's Disney trying to appease people. But I don't even know. This CBS.
The word pandering has been, levied so much recently.
Right. And anything that looks, and how come there's technically more women on the bridge than men? I was like, oh, here we go. Come on. Even the aliens are women. Oh, God. Come on. Yeah. It's like, I try to shut that out when I'm, when I'm if I get not into an argument, but if you go on Facebook and you start reading people's comments and it's like, okay, I can't even get involved in this because it's a downward spiral where you can't argue that. It's like, okay.
Right, and the thing that I see come up, is that, and this is such a to me, shoddy defense. But they always say, oh well, we had Uhura and she was a woman, and no one used this argument against her, and she's a black female. But yeah, Uhura, and don't get me wrong, Uhura is a great character for the time, but she was. I hate to say this, she was sort of a background character. I mean, she did have her moments, and she did groundbreaking stuff, but you can't compare the two. You can't say, the character of Uhura was great, and everyone loved her, but Commander Burnham is just too much. Like, you can't compare the two. It's not the same thing.
No, it's a lead versus a secondary character. That's there's no mystery. The original Star Trek is Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. That's the lead. Those three guys are the lead. Everybody else they're all secondary characters, and she's one of those secondary characters. Right. This show is different. This show, they're. But I mean, again, you go through these things in different ways, and it's funny because a property like Star Trek, talk about a property that. Little by little, it's almost like the turtle versus the hare. Little by little, they keep going up and up and up and up. You put Cisco as the captain, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, wait a minute, what's going on here? This isn't not my Star Trek, that kind of thing. You put a woman as a lead, and it's you go through the same thing. I don't think anybody complained with Archer. I don't think I don't think they had any problems with Archer. I think of those kind of problems. But guess what? They definitely came back now with the Discovery, that's for sure.
Okay, yeah. And like you said before, this is something that's been going on so recently now. So we have Star Trek, we have that. Then we have also, recently is the character of Captain Marvel.
Oh boy.
Which surprisingly, when the idea of having Captain Marvel be a female, I was sort of listening for and trying to keep my ear out for, any sort of backlash that was in relation to this. And when it first came out, it seemed like, a lot of people didn't have too many problems with it. I mean, there were, I would see, online people saying, why she had to be a female and everything, but it seemed like people were more accepting of it.
Did you not see the videos of certain individuals buying Captain Marvel action figures just to tear them apart and destroy them? Or
that I may have missed.
Or doing like hour-long shows on the fact that she doesn't smile and a lady should smile. It's like
well,
really?
I did see a big backlash after her, because the actress Brie Larson made a few comments that were sort of in the vein that we're talking about, so to speak. And then after that, then the floodgates opened, and then all of a sudden, the same type of talking and critiquing came out all of a sudden about how it's Disney's fault. They're just pushing their agenda out on everyone, and then and of course then the Mary Sue label gets slapped around.
Well, I also remember, again, one of these shows that I talked about in the past, so you can look it up if you're interested, that all they do is they hate. It's 24 hours hate, basically. That's all they do. They just hate things. And with Captain Marvel, it was hate from the beginning, from the second they announced her to the day the movie came out. Even when the movie was making money, they still hated her. They hated her in Endgame. They hated her everywhere. And I remember one of the things they kept saying was that, why do these actresses have to bring their own personal politics into this? And, why do we have to hear about their politics? And then they were like, yeah, because, Chris Evans, on Twitter, Chris Evans, he's really, we really wish he would be quiet, but he's so good as Captain America that we can kind of forgive that. It's like, really? So you can forgive Chris Evans's politics because he's a guy and because he's Captain America, but her politics are a problem, which should theoretically have nothing to do with the movie you're watching. that's a separate thing. But yeah, I mean, and the other thing about the Mary Sue term is that, again, how powerful is this character, and will this character be just so powerful that they can just flick a button or press a switch and this character could just resolve whatever conflict they have? And my question is, did they invent powers for her, or were these powers already part of the comic in some shape or form? So in other words, if she can fly, if she can shoot stuff out of her hands or whatever, if she can fly through ships and destroy them in a comic book, why is that too powerful in the movie?
Yeah, right. And that's the thing where it sort of brings up the question of, well, if it fits the story, and that's how the story was, if the background was there for those powers or for whatever, what have you, then you can't say, oh, she's overpowered. Well, no, clearly not, because if you read the source material, or if it's presented to you in a way where okay, yeah, those are her powers. I'm not seeing why this has to be such a big deal. Whereas, and to branch off this, as another character such as Rey from Star Wars, it's the same thing. It's okay, people are upset that she has these powers, but Luke had a few days of training, and he all of a sudden in the next movie becomes very, very powerful. So it's this idea where you have to sometimes accept okay, what's in front of you, and not necessarily say, okay, she's overpowered, I don't want anything to do with her. She's just pushing some agenda here. But on the same side, you have characters such as Luke from Star Wars, technically having less training starting out than she did.
Right.
Rey would start out as someone surviving on a desert planet, surviving for life.
Well, let me play the devil's advocate here, because I have, as I have super serious problems with The Last Jedi.
No, trust me, I do too.
One of my biggest gripes is the fact that in the book, and then later through articles and interviews, it was revealed that one of the reasons why she is so powerful is because she has the ability to but she can learn through Kylo Ren. So in other words, just by being near him and making those connections, she starts to absorb his knowledge or his experience. So that is something that's completely new. In other words, Luke never had that. Luke was learning just by learning. She all of a sudden has this power now, but here's the kicker. That was never explained in the movie. That was later explained or expanded on, and I see that as a failure of the script. That should have been portrayed more clearly in the movies. This way, we can accept her fast learning techniques. That might be even considered faster than Luke. It's also hard to with Luke, we always have that problem of, well, how long was he on Dagobah? Was he there a week? Was he there a month?
Yeah.
Is it 3 months? Is it 3 days? Does that mean that Han and Leia were flying around for 3 months looking for a place to land? We're always kind of confused about the time difference.
Yeah. Now, as a sort of sidebar here, I do believe that Luke was only there for maybe, during that scene, Han and Leia were on the asteroid, right? So they could not have been there for more than, a few days.
Now, granted, I read this somewhere. The hyperdrive was broken on the Falcon, which means they can't just, boom, shoot over to Lando's. It took them a long time to get to Lando's. So,
that's right.
Again, I could have swore I looked it up a while back, and I think it could have been weeks, or at least a week or a couple of weeks, the amount of time spent, in the adventure, So that would give you a little more, okay, well, what has Luke learned? If you think about it, all he really learned is to keep himself alive and run away, but he gets his butt kicked in the process. He's, and I think Vader is kind of taking easy on him because he wants him. So he doesn't want to kill him. He just wants to beat the crap out of him. And he does. Rey, on the other hand, she kind of gets the upper hand on Kylo Ren. So again, for the audience member not to know that she somehow is absorbing the knowledge that he has, and then she can use it against him, that's where it gets a little, okay, well, what exactly is happening here? That kind of difference.
I will agree with that, but the fact that a lot of people will say that, because Rey technically did get the upper hand in the final battle of Force Awakens,
Yes.
That somehow, ruins the story, and now there's no climax. But to me, like, going the easy route would have been, okay, following the same format, as
she just
all the other
escapes,
movies, where
like
she gets beaten, but she just escapes, and then the second movie would have been her training and fighting, and then like Return of the Jedi, and then she comes back and overthrows the bad guy.
Right.
We've seen that in science fiction so many times. Believe me, I have my problems with The Force Awakens and the whole sequel trilogy, so I can only defend this so much. But the fact that it's something different where she actually quasi defeats the bad guy in the first film, it can take itself into a different sort of climax now, into a more creative different I hate to use the term subversive finale, but I just feel like that the comparison between Rey and Luke is sort of unfair, in that because Luke. And also in the fact that Jedi are supposed to be trained from very, very young, right? So Luke is a teenager when he just starts training, when he just learns about it.
Even Anakin, you remember Anakin didn't want to train him, and he was like 10 years old or something.
Yeah, exactly.
I think they're supposed to grab him when they're like 3 or 4 years old or something like that. To properly train him.
So, and the fact that Luke, blows up a Death Star, after a few minutes on board the Falcon, even before Empire Strikes Back, like Luke, you use the Force, blows up the Death Star, he outflies all these other trained pilots, they give him, an X-wing.
But hold on a second. But Luke, we clearly hear Ben's voice, so he's not just using the Force. He's getting a coach on his shoulder, telling him what buttons to push, more or less.
Well, in that case, I will use that right back with Rey. Then apparently Rey must have had a voice, saying, here's what you need to do. But either way, we can go back and forth between this all day. Is what we do.
Oh man.
But okay. So some other characters that have appeared in science fiction. And I'll try to keep it to science fiction just so we're not here, all day. Well, there's another character I found to be respected. I don't hear this talk about. I don't hear the term Mary Sue with her all that much. Is Starbuck from Battlestar Galactica?
Oh,
characterized.
Well, with this character, and I don't know if we mentioned it before, there was blowback in the beginning. Again, the same kind of people that are out now screaming, back then they were a little quieter, but immediately I did hear personally from people, from specifically one specific person that I know. It's
okay, that's good.
Why is this a woman? Why do you have to do that? Why do you have to ruin the show? It's a woman. Why the hell are you doing it? Starbuck is a guy. He should be a guy. A smoking, drinking kind of guy. And that's a woman? I don't want to watch this. Hey, wait, Boomer? Now, Boomer's a woman too? I heard the speech. Now, what I love about the speech is that about a month or two after the show started, this person absolutely loved the show. So he had to eat his own words. And I'll take it a step further. This same person the other day texted me, "Hey, I just watched Star Trek Discovery. I think it's the best Star Trek ever." I'm like, wait. You forget what you were saying about the lead character and the fact that she was black and this and that? Again, some people I just cannot make this up. It's just ridiculous. but there was I remember there was and it was before the show started when they announced how they were changing certain characters. Some people were freaking out. Then when the show started, a lot of these people switched sides because they saw the show and they appreciated it and they liked it, and they didn't feel like hiding the fact that they liked it.
See, that's good that you mentioned that because I wasn't on board when this show first when the 2004 series came about. I've only recently started catching up. So to me, I guess all of this has cooled down over time now. So I suppose that so probably I'm not hearing the big pushback. No. As it were, when it actually happened.
It changed very fast. The show's popularity became so big that it I don't know if people just got quiet or they were turned over to the other side. I don't know, but it switched. I'd never seen it switch like that before with any other show. Never.
And it's interesting you bring that up, that sort of group mentality, because that's something else I wanted to touch on, was the fact that I've noticed that when this is especially true now with the proliferation of YouTube and a lot of channels that he knows what I do go on about how much something is spouting a certain agenda or what have you, and there's a lot of these channels and they have a large audience, a large following.
Oh yeah.
So what I've noticed is the fact that when the wind blows a certain way, so to speak, and when it's popular to not like a character, then this is when everyone comes out about, okay, let's all get on board. Let's all, sort of get on board the bandwagon and trash, or use these more derogatory terms, like, oh, it's just Mary Sue, it's pushing an agenda.
But that also leads to, like, they'll start with that. But then it goes deeper. Then it goes into SJWs and all these other code words that you're like, okay, this is now a political conversation we're having. We're not talking about fandom anymore. Now we're just throwing all the politics into the pot, because I guess that's the whole point of the conversation, is to bring it all to politics. I don't know.
Right.
They know they can push people's buttons by bringing politics into it. And let me just add one quick thing, going back to Battlestar Galactica. A lot of people, I remember also, there was also concern about, again, when you're dealing with the Mary Sue term, that Starbuck was not way too powerful, but she was way too, and I don't want to spoil it for you if you're ever going to continue watching it, but she was too integral in the way that the story is resolved. And something happens to her that you're like, wait a minute, this is what happens to her? Well, the thing to keep in mind was that this show was based on another show. It was a reboot of a show. And that's practically more or less the same thing that happens to her character earlier on, his character, in the other show. So people can't say, oh, you just did this to shock the audience, or to give her too much power, or to make her too supernatural or whatever. But it's like, guess what? They already did that the last time. So you can't blame them. You can't accuse them of just creating something out of nothing, because it was already done before.
Right. I'm on the last season now, so I have to yeah. And the show has taken a sort of an odd turn.
Yes,
it definitely changed its sort of like focus. So I'm not sure how I'm feeling with it right now, but I'll get back to that.
You got to also remember that the show, it's also a reflection of the times. The show came out right around the time of 9/11.
Yeah.
So the show had this dark, defeated feel to it, where you just got your butt kicked. And what do you do next?
Oh, the first season was...
It was devastating. And now, again, that's exactly how the original show was, but it just made more sense because of the times that you're watching it in. And, for example, there's a whole season about occupation where they're kind of under the Cylon occupation, and was it New Caprica or something?
Yep.
And people were like, well, this is just too much about the Iraq War, about the insurgencies and this and that. It's like, well, this is what we're living through at this time. So you're gonna make those connections, because that's what's happening.
Yeah, and you can feel like the tonal shift of it. It's sort of it's very, 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 very good show. Maybe we can do a podcast now some other time.
But let me ask you something. Going back to superheroes, the Mary Sue argument could be made with any superhero if they decide to go in that direction. In other words, is Superman too powerful? Well, yeah, he's Superman. So technically, you can say, okay, he's got kryptonite. It's his thing. Okay, fine. But not everybody's going to use kryptonite in every episode or every movie that involves Superman. So if there's no kryptonite, then all of a sudden he's a Mary Sue, because he can do anything. But I guess as a writer, you're not always going to make Superman, win out of the gate. He's not going to just, because then the story will last 10 minutes.
Right.
There's always going to be some confusion, or something goes wrong, or with whatever character you're dealing with. Even Captain Marvel, we are going to see that she does have some limits. Again, I have no idea what her limits are, because I don't follow the comic. But by watching Endgame, which again, not too many spoilers here, but did you see Endgame already?
No, not yet.
Well, let me just say a few things. She's not a Mary Sue in Endgame. She throws her punches, but she is not the be-all and end-all of this movie. She's just another character, fighting for the good guys.
Yeah, and that's a perfect example you brought up with Superman, because, in comics, like you said, any character can be. If you look objectively at a comic book,
Yeah, anybody.
All of them are Mary Sue's because they all have mostly overblown powers, and at the end of the book, they come up with a solution to defeat the bad guy, and then that's it.
Unless you take, for example, every DC comic, no matter who the character is, whether it's Batman or Superman, and then at the last page, Superman always walks in and wins. Even in a Batman or an Aquaman, whatever, then you have a problem. If you always bring in Superman to win the battle, you have a problem. But no, you got to let these individual characters resolve their own issues or their own battles. And then every now and then you do have, the Avengers assembled. You get all the good guys on one side and everybody takes a turn. Everybody punches the bad guy and then they all equally kind of win or something like that. But you also give them all individual stories so that they can all shine on their own. On the other hand, I have a feeling that even if you have individual Captain Marvel stories, these people will have a problem with Captain Marvel winning even on her own.
Yeah.
It's like, you just can't win. There's no way around it.
And again, like I said, this is something that's become more pronounced and I guess louder recently, where it seems like everyone, even the slightest hint of a female character being, powerful or the main role, then they all of a sudden come out of the woodwork saying, "Oh, Mary Sue," and they slap around the label. Let me ask you: do you have anyone that comes to mind if there was a male version of the Mary Sue, which is sometimes referred to as a Gary Stu?
Well, yeah, I would say, take somebody like James Bond.
Yep.
Sooner or later, if you check your watch. And if it's within, 10, 15 minutes of the end of the movie, he's going to pull something out of his butt and save the day. It's got to happen. That's the way it works. The women are just going to all faint and drop dead in front of him. Now, I will say, that is more what used to happen in the past. That's a whole other show. That's the whole, the Sean Connery Bond where it was like watching Mad Men.
Yeah, right.
The cliches are so all over the place. The women are looking at him, they're just melting in front of him. And they're like, "Yes, James, whatever you want," that kind of stuff. The bad guys, they always have to do the 15-minute speech before they try to kill him, so that gives them enough time for him to figure out a way to get out of it. Nowadays, I like the fact that it's different. It's, the bad guys are nastier. He's nasty too. And it's a little more modern, more realistic. I don't say modern, more realistic.
Yeah, more gritty.
But still, it's like, oh man, you're Bond. You're gonna win. You're walking Captain Kirk, basically. That's what you are.
Yeah, right. And in fact, with Bond, is the fact that we criticize, characters like Rey who have, all these powers, and if she gets hurt, how she gets to the rocks and everything. But with Bond, who's a human being with no superpowers, he gets put through the ringer of some fist fights. He gets the crap beat out of him, and he still manages, to.
Well, that's a whole other thing. The type of punishment a character like Bond takes. What I like about it is that, for example, Indiana Jones. The best thing about Raiders of the Lost Ark is that every punch that Indiana Jones takes, you feel that punch, and you see the results of that punch for the rest of that movie. Yeah. And James Bond never used to have that. Later on, with Daniel Craig, for example, he does take a beating, and those beatings, they stay with him, whether it's a physical beating or some sort of psychological problem or trauma, it stays with him. And I like that. I like the fact that they modernized it and they made it a little more clear. But yeah, if you go back to like Roger Moore or Sean Connery, there's more of that's like, oh, come on, guys. Now, granted, Bond is a more realistic character, I think, than Indiana Jones, because Indiana Jones, like I said, it explores more, again, supernatural things and even science fiction themes, if you think about it. Bond is more straight, crime, government, espionage type of material. But hey, I got another one for you. I don't know, do you watch Game of Thrones?
I read the books. I don't watch the TV show.
Okay. Well, let me say something. Very recently, last week I think it was, or a week before, there was a character who was able to defeat a very big bad guy. Let's put it that way. And there are people who are having a fit. Why this character? And it's like, wait a minute. You've been learning about this character since the beginning of the series and how this character has progressed and trained and become kind of like a master at something, And that's why this character was able to succeed. But they were like, oh, Mary Sue, Mary Sue, Mary Sue, Mary Sue.
Yeah, and now it's funny you mentioned this because I'm assuming you're speaking. Now, a spoiler alert for anyone,
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
I'm assuming you're speaking of Arya.
Yes, I am, and I haven't read any of the books. I'm only going with the series with HBO.
That's funny because I've only read the books. I haven't seen any of the series. But in the books, and I can only assume in the series as well, that character is put through some crap.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, in the books, she is just like dragged through the mud. Almost literally.
And they don't forget her. Like, in other words, every season, you see her progression every season of everything she goes through. Yeah. So it's not like you forget about this character doesn't appear the first 3 seasons and all of a sudden it shows up now. No, you've seen the progression. So unless you're asleep, you got nothing to stand on.
Right, and people will come out and say, okay, well, it's just them, trying to put a political agenda or a political spin on it. This book was written, this idea, this character was written, almost 2 decades ago. There's nothing new here, and this idea of a character has been put out. Her path has been, laid out.
Oh yeah,
before your eyes, literally. So there's no, I don't see. I can see if you want to use that argument against, someone like Rey. Fine, she came out of nowhere, whatever. But with Arya, we saw her broken down, and then
she earned it. She definitely earned it.
Yeah, definitely. If there's one character who earned it, she did. So that it took me by surprise. It didn't take me by surprise because I should have saw it coming. But the fact that people would have been so easy to knee-jerk that reaction with.
I also saw, and again, I don't know how accurate this was, but I mean, I've seen some articles about Harry Potter that Hermione is a little too much of a Mary Sue, and it's like, why? Because she's the only woman that's lead. She's a co-lead, or I don't know if I would say lead because it's really Harry Potter. Harry Potter is the lead, but then you have secondaries that are very close to being leads. But I don't think she really sucks the air out of the room. I don't think she does anything that's so that amazing that I don't see that argument. But I mean, again, people will try to make the argument anyway.
Right.
Is there any other ones you can think of?
Not ones that are currently being labeled as this Mary Sue type of character, but I have 2 that come to mind where I don't hear anything about them, but to me I feel as if these 2 characters were put into current movies that we would all instantly hear some sort of backlash against it. And the one character is Ripley from Alien.
Oh,
well, from Aliens, all of them. You never, well, at least maybe you have, when she comes to a conversation, I never hear anyone say, "Oh, Ripley, that Mary Sue of a character." It's more of a. Everyone seems to kind of, agree, I guess, more or less that she's a good character, but it makes me wonder if this because the movie is older, it's been kind of like grandfathered in, if you will. Yeah. So that because people just relate to it because they know it from growing up with it or it being around so long. If Alien there was no prior franchise and it just was released today in 2019, would that character get the same backlash as Captain Marvel or Rey or something?
Well, today it probably would, but again, because it happened in the late 70s. And I remember, again, not so much the publicity, but the historical importance of the film, other than the fact that it's a great horror film, was also about a female lead that can take care of herself. And then when you have the sequel, you get even more of that. She's even more than just taking care of herself. She's taking care of a child, and she's taking care of whatever's left of the troops. So she becomes more of a leader than just a self-preservation type of character. And back then, I don't remember hearing a backlash about it. As a matter of fact, especially because, maybe it's because it's James Cameron, he had a big reputation from his previous films, from his previous film, really, The Terminator, of having an empowered female lead in the film, where all of a sudden the lead goes from being the victim to the victor. She kind of turns the tables on whatever bad guy you happen to be, going after. In Terminator, obviously, it's the Terminator, and in Aliens, it's aliens, the aliens themselves. But yeah, Ridley Scott did it first, in a one-on-one basis. And yeah, I don't remember him neither one of them getting any flack about it. Now, if you then start going down all of the sequels that came afterwards, I mean, I would have more problems with the quality of the sequels than, overusing the character or taking advantage of the character or, trying to get into a franchise, basically. Right. To me, with, Alien, to me is Alien and Aliens. The rest you can keep. And Terminator, same thing. It's Terminator 1 and Terminator 2. The rest you can keep.
Yeah, it's funny actually how the first two in both franchises, are the only the definitive movies, and
the
everything
rest
else
are kind of like I'll watch them, but they don't have the impact that those original ones did. But I do remember that a lot of times when people talk about those films, they talk about the fact that the strong female characters, but nobody dumps on it the way that they do it today. It's weird.
Yeah, and that's why it brought me thinking, like, okay, well, is it just today, if anything new comes about, and if anything set, in our current age, then, they have like this free reign to sort of, shout and curse the sky, for it being, some political agenda. But if it's anything that they grew up with, or if it's anything a bit older that's been sort of grandfathered in through time, then that's okay. That gets a free pass.
Well, let me give you a possible theory that I might be completely wrong. What if the reason people are more comfortable with those characters is because they are portraying a more masculine type of behavior than what you would consider to be a feminist approach to a movie character? So in other words, Ripley and Sarah Connor, they're about kicking ass. They're basically kick ass and take no names. You know what I mean? They're not there to tell you about feminism and the women's rights and all that kind of stuff. So maybe because it's that, people kind of like, all right, well, I can accept that. That's okay. I can deal with that.
I don't like it, but I can accept it.
but if you start then talking about things that are a little more intellectual, then that's what's like, oh, wait a minute now. I don't want to hear about your women problems or whatever the hell it is that you're screaming about. Why don't you just pick up a rifle and shoot something, and then I'll give you the thumbs up. I don't know. Maybe. I'm just thinking.
And that's very interesting. I didn't think about from that angle where, both of those characters, and nothing to take away from either of them, but they are written to be more militant, I guess. Yeah. Would be,
It's action. It's adventure. It's blowing things up. It's pseudo Rambo. And did you say you had another one?
It was Sarah Connor.
Okay. So we were thinking the same thing. Oh, wow.
Thinking the same exact thing.
Any other ones you could think of, Steve?
Oh, yeah. And the other one I wanted to bring up was the new Doctor Who. And this is funny because the new Doctor Who character is a female character. She's the first female Doctor, actually.
Yeah.
And this created some on Reddit. If you follow the subreddit on Doctor Who, when it was announced,
the person I was mentioning before to you also had a complete meltdown about Doctor Who.
Oh, okay. I would love to meet this person, by the way.
No, you won't. No, you won't. I guarantee you won't.
Well, what I found the most interesting on this one is the fact that I'm sort of a new Doctor Who fan. This technically was only my second season of Doctor Who. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm very new. But I did go back and watch a few of the older, older episodes. To me, the real Doctor Who is the biggest Mary Sue ever. Like the male Doctor. I mean, the guy, he comes in, saves the day, literally every episode, and he has the sonic screwdriver where it does anything. He has other companions, and we did get the African American female follower, and we'll get the interracial characters that follow him around. But it's always him. She's the main lead, the guy, the savior who always has something. Every episode always has something to win the day with. Then we get a female character, but then that's the thing that sets it off. That's the thing that makes it a Mary Sue.
That's it. That's it. You crossed the line. You crossed the line.
And that to me is the biggest blatant example of
It was so realistic up to this point.
Yeah. It's totally based in reality. I can get behind him coming in singing day every episode, no problem. Once it was a female, that's when it really just tipped over the scales.
Yeah.
but in all seriousness, though, I was surprised about the amount of backlash that the character received, it being announced that the new Doctor was female. And I'm like, you guys watching the same series that I started watching? And again, maybe it's because people grew up with it, and that's how they perceived the Doctor to always be. So, again, grandfathered in their mind. But to me, it just strikes me as so, odd to think that because they changed the sex of the main character, that's what tips everyone off into being, slamming it as a Mary Sue. And I watched this new season, and I watched a few of the other episodes from the previous seasons. There was no real difference in how it was written. The character was played and written pretty much the same.
Right. But the change of gender, that's what freaked people out.
Yeah, right.
All right. Well, I mean, this is... Again, we haven't, who knows how long it takes to go through these phases of insanity, but I have a feeling we're going to continue going through this, and whether it's Marvel or DC. Now, I don't remember people having too much of a fit over some people did have a fit over Wonder Woman. Yeah, they did. They had a fit over Wonder Woman, but they have a bigger fit over Captain Marvel. That's for sure. And again, these are the same people that I remember. They're like, oh, we love Ahsoka because we love female characters. And it's like, Ahsoka is not a human. It's a creature. It's a made-up female character because you can't handle real female characters. Oh, never mind. We love Leia. Okay, thanks. Next.
Yeah.
I'm sure any female character that will be introduced into the next Star Wars film, it's already on the list of let's figure out what we can, what box that we can check off of our list of, oh, she's one of those, and she's one of those. Wait a minute, she's into that? Oh, perfect. I hate her. It's going to be one of those.
It's definitely... yeah.
Disney pandering. You're a shill. You're a shill for Disney.
That they're so quick to kind of sort of like lump some, like you said, like lump me into some sort of checkbox category. If it doesn't fit their ideal view type of what a main character has to be.
I don't know. But like I said, I think we're going to keep seeing this, and it's going to keep coming up. And the discrepancies between examples between men and women when you accuse them of being a Mary Sue. Now, granted, I've seen also on the internet that they have a different names for the male version of the Mary Sue.
Like a Gary
but I think that's kind of like after the fact. That's something that was just created to kind of say, oh, that's not where we're coming from. We also have these guys. Okay, I get
no one uses that term. You don't hear the term Gary Stew.
No.
It doesn't have the same sort of negativity to it.
Yeah. So I'm sure we're going to keep seeing this, and we'll keep pointing it out every now and then. We'll be we'll be there to kind of say, wait a minute, this doesn't sound right. What's the difference between this and that? And then we'll be able to do it. So thank you, Steve, for joining me today and hitting this bizarre topic that 10 years ago I wouldn't even imagine having a conversation about.
Yeah, right. And it seems to have really sort of come into its own, it's sort of come into its own recently, where now it seems like it's louder than ever, where, you can, in fact, again, I thank YouTube for that, where anyone can just jump on, YouTube, create a channel and yell their, points of view the loudest. So
yeah, the loudest screams gets to 100,000 viewers.
Yeah, no, it's true. The more negative you are, the higher your click throughput goes.
It works. It works. All right, I'd like to thank once again Steve Folks for joining me today on our subject of trying to explain what the Mary Sue is and how it applies to some of the things that we watch today. It's interesting that the origin of even that term came from one of the biggest genre materials out there that we enjoy, and how it's been kind of bastardized in a way. In the way that it's being used these days with certain characters as opposed to others. But I guess that's the type of thing that will happen, and we seem to be riding this weird wave recently where people are hypercritical and politically, really, in reality, critical of even genre material. So on behalf of everyone, thank you for listening, and we'll see you soon here at GeekFest Rants. Bye-bye, everybody.
They used to say if a man could fly, he'd have wings. But he did fly. He discovered he had to. Do you wish that the first Apollo mission hadn't reached the moon, or that we hadn't gone on to Mars and then to the nearest star? That's like saying you wish that you still operated with scalpels and sewed your patients up with catgut, like your great-great-great-great-grandfather used to. I'm in command. I could order this. But I'm not. Because Dr. McCoy is right in pointing out the enormous danger potential in any contact with life and intelligence as fantastically advanced as this. But I must point out that the possibilities, the potential for knowledge and advancement is equally great. Risk is our business. That's what the Starship is all about. That's why we're aboard her. You may dissent without prejudice. Do I hear a negative vote?
If you would like to subscribe to our show, send us messages, or see video links to some of the topics we talked about today, please visit our homepage at geekfestrants.com or our YouTube channel, Facebook page, or iTunes at GeekFest Rants.
I don't know what we're yelling about!
GeekFest Rants is produced by Carlos Perone, copyright 2019.
This broadcast is part of the IC Robots Radio Network. Visit icrobots.com for this and many other nerd/nostalgia related podcasts. You won't be sorry for long.